Good morning, Kitses. How are you today? So, today we're going to be doing the Pokemon Fusion that we voted on over on my Twitter. You can find that link below. Um, the previous poll got us the Pokemon Fusion of Spiritomb and Houndoom. So, with how that is, I have a few personal headcanons regarding some of these Pokemon, and we're going to actually put them into effect here. That said, let's go ahead and move over and see what it is that I finally was able to come up with. So, right off the bat, I knew that I wanted to have the keystone be the center where Houndoom's skull typically is. Um, and I also know that because I like looking and seeing what other people do come up with typically, because it gives me ideas to not do the same thing that I see everywhere else. And I see that a lot of Spiritomb fusions typically have the Spiritomb face over the other Pokemon's face, which isn't a bad idea at all. But, hold on, sneezy. Excuse me. But the thing is, these were supposed to be Pokemon that were like fused, not simply possessed. So, a small trigger warning, because it can be a little dark given the Pokedex entries of Houndoom and Spiritomb as they are individually. So, with Spiritomb, we know that it is made up of at least, possibly exactly, possibly more, 108 Pokemon. And not these Pokemon spirits, 108 spirits. And they were extremely malevolent or just tricksters, and as punishment for their misdeeds were sealed into the keystone as Spiritomb. That's important to note. So with Houndoom, we know that it will only obey an extremely skilled trainer. So I wanted to put that in effect here. See, because we've seen Spiritomb only be handled by either ace trainers or champions, my personal headcanon is that only trainers with a very wide array of experience handling either strong-willed Pokemon or just ghost-type Pokemon in general, maybe dragon types, even can handle Spiritomb, because we've seen instances in the anime where it would possess people. If you recall, when the first episode Spiritomb showed up, it did exactly that. So, the idea here is that Spiritomb, whenever it was fused onto Houndoom, did try to influence Houndoom to do these misdeeds. It's like a physical body. However, this Houndoom belonged to a trainer, and thus belonged to a champion, and thus had a stronger will than most Pokemon, to the point that the Spiritomb's 108 spirits fall short of the will of this Houndoom. So, right now, this Pokemon, I decided to go ahead and call it SpiritHound. Not very original compared to Icaria, but it actually kind of works here. So, what you can see me doing here is I have the keystone spreading along the Pokemon's legs, and it's gonna stop right at the paws. And it's just some of it did fall away, exposing some of the ribs here, which will be the Pokemon itself isn't gonna fall apart because it's a fusion. It's now a ghost dark type. So, as a result, SpiritHound can basically erase its presence at will and show up elsewhere. But, the thing is, this SpiritHound is unique in the aspect of not every Pokemon that fuses with a Spiritomb is able to hold on to its will, which makes sense. I mean, Spiritomb is comprised of at least 108 spirits. So, in this situation, this Houndoom belonged to a champion, this champion was involved in an accident, and as a result, Houndoom and Spiritomb from that accident were fused. So, to not disappoint its trainer, Houndoom held on to its will to protect its trainer, and after time, SpiritHound was eventually given to another high-ranking trainer. Obviously, it didn't like this at first, and SpiritHound constantly escaped confinement to go back to its former master's grave. So, it took a long time for SpiritHound to begin warming up to other people. Now, as far as SpiritHound goes as a Pokemon versus its backstory, it still possesses the toxic flames of Houndoom, but it has the added effect, it has the added effect of the influence of Spiritomb, which basically can paralyze one with fear. It's very intimidating, and a natural ability that I would think SpiritHound would have is Intimidate. In fact, you can see where some of the spirits are trying to get out of the spreading keystone on its body via the cracks in the glow. However, as I had said, SpiritHound is a very loyal Pokemon and is not keen on simply being overwhelmed. In this manner, SpiritHound does eventually come to an equilibrium with basically both sides of itself, becoming a very loyal, steadfast Pokemon that gets passed down over centuries of time, unable to pass away under age because of the fact that it's basically fused with the keystone. So many times, there are many champions that SpiritHound has been passed through. As a result, even though SpiritHound is very loyal to its masters, it's still kind of resentful, and over time, SpiritHound wasn't able to differentiate itself from its Houndoom self and the 108 spirits. It simply became another spirit that was added to Spiritomb's thing. So, it became its own, new self, so to speak. And as a result, there's a bit of self-resentment because of the fact that it was responsible for its, first master's, death. So, while a very steadfast Pokemon, it does take a fair bit of time for it to warm up to a new master, just because it understands that it's not going to be its final master, because of the fact that Spiritomb is undying. SpiritHound is also under that same affliction. Eventually, SpiritHound does get loose and does break its own Pokeball in an attempt to spare itself from the heartache. SpiritHound has basically begun wandering either the highest mountain peaks or the deepest ruins. You'll find champions chasing rumors of this Pokemon in the hopes that they can find it and quell it, even though SpiritHound itself doesn't seem to be mischievous by nature. However, once it has claimed a territory, it's not so keen on letting other people in, just for the fact that it strongly believes that if it lets somebody in, it will just lose them in another decade, which unfortunately does tend to happen quite frequently. Now, the interesting thing to note about the design, right, is that, as you can see what I'm doing here, is SpiritHound still has the iris of Houndoom, and that's to signify that SpiritHound, despite becoming its own entity, still holds on to those core values that were established by Houndoom. So, as much as I would love for it to be happy and find, their own trainer, it comes down to the fact that this is a trained canine Pokemon that listens to, basically most trainers because it respects them. And unfortunately, as trainers pass on, this instills a sense of grief. So, that said, it really doesn't like attaching to people. But, with everything figured out and the design finalized, I do have a question. Who's that Pokemon? It's SpiritHound. I do appreciate you guys sticking with me today as I kind of rambled. I was very excited to talk about this Pokemon, and I did double back quite a bit just because there's only so much I could say about this one, since it's the result of basically every tragedy you could imagine being rolled up into an unfortunate circumstance. Who knows? Maybe one day you might be able to calm this poor thing. Maybe you can convince it that there's nothing wrong with life. That said, let's return back to our just chatting screen. I hope that all of you enjoyed today's speed draw. It actually took me a little while to figure out what I wanted to do with SpiritHound, and I really hope that you guys like the end result. It's a fantastic Pokemon, and believe me, if I could have this Pokemon myself, I absolutely would. All that said, you can find links to my other socials down below. I hope all of you have a fantastic day, Kitsus, and I do have a treat coming up soon for my next video. It's not going to be a fusion, but I will say this, in light of Pokemon Day and Pokemon Presents, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can try my hand at, well, a Paradox Pokemon. But I think that's all I'm going to tell you about it. I'll go ahead and see you guys next time, Kitsus. Be sure to look forward to it. Bye bye!